I, 29 female, got engaged to my fiance, 31 male, a year or so ago. We met through my best friend, who we'll call M, 29 female. M and I have been friends since high school. I think of her as a sister. She met my fiance through work, and seeing that I had finished a less than ideal relationship, she asked to set me up. I reluctantly said yes. She introduced me to my fiance, and after a couple of dates, we officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. He was sweet, caring, and an overall nice person. I felt as though I could tell him anything and everything. The only thing that ever caused tension was our economic differences. I grew up in the upper middle class, so money was never a particular worry. He would lament that he couldn't buy me nice things, to which I always reassured him that it was okay. I even gave him money on several occasions when he needed it. It didn't matter to me because this was the man I loved. He gave me the affection I had been longing for. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship, so having someone treat me so kindly was astounding. To top it off, he and M had a great relationship. They got along well and acted like each other's best friends. Sometimes, though, their closeness was a bit uncomfortable. Not enough to cause alarm, but maybe some insecurity. For example, M jokingly said at one point, if it weren't for you, I would have dated him. This caused some worry. I asked her if she had ever caught feelings for him, but she brushed it off, saying I was being too sensitive. I felt bad, apologized, and even decided to trust her on that. After all, we had been friends for many years. She had supported me after my previously failed relationship, and she was the reason I met my fiance. I expressed my anxieties to my fiance, to which he calmly reassured me that there was nothing going on. I trusted him. We dated for about 3 years before he popped the question. I said yes, I knew he was the one for me. He supported me through everything, and I was sure. I called M over to give her the fantastic news and ask her to be my maid of honor. However, M's reaction surprised me. Instead of cheering with joy, she kind of just went quiet. I asked her what was wrong, but she insisted on nothing. She half heartedly agreed to be my maid of honor before excusing herself to the bathroom. I waited for maybe half an hour until she finally rejoined me, only to tell me that she needed to go. I asked again if something was wrong, but she only continued to deny it and left quickly. I stood there stunned before quickly calling my fiance and telling him what had happened. He kind of shrugged it off, saying maybe it was an off day and that she'll be fine soon. He told me to relax, and I hesitantly took his advice. I texted M later that evening, but even though she saw the messages, she didn't answer. It was a very odd reaction, but I figured maybe something unrelated had happened. I didn't hear from her until a few days later. She called me all chipper, saying she was coming over to start wedding planning. I was very confused by the sudden change in mood, but went along with it. She came over, she was happy as can be. I attempted to ask her what had been wrong, but she brushed it off, saying it was just a bad day for her. I remained worried, but she insisted she was fine and couldn't wait to be my maid of honor. I let it go, figured she was telling me the truth, and we started planning out the wedding details. I had a lot of fun, though M was a bit of a handful. She was nitpicky about which flowers should be used for decoration, the food that should be served, and so on. When I took her and my mom dress shopping with me, she insisted that I should get a mermaid gown, even though she knew I wanted an A-line. It was my preferred silhouette, and she was aware of that. Thankfully, my mom was my biggest supporter, and I ended up getting the dress that I wanted. This is just one example of M's attitude during the whole process. However, I let it slide because she just wanted what was best for me. Fast forward to the night before the wedding, M is fast asleep as well as my three other bridesmaids. I'm in bed, lying awake, too much excitement and nerves about tomorrow. Too many blissful thoughts about the future. I'm scrolling through TikToks, which is so addicting, trying to lull myself to sleep when I suddenly receive a text. It's very late into the night, so this was surprising, though not as surprising to see it's from my soon-to-be husband. I thought maybe he was sending me a sweet goodnight message, but it was anything but. The first thing my eyes land on is M's name. This was a message meant for her eyes only. It goes on to my once beloved fiance saying how he loves M very much, that this marriage is only temporary so that I can support him. He then says they can continue to meet behind my back until he's financially stable enough to not need me. After he divorces me, they can get married. I remember going numb with each sentence, and I didn't notice I was crying until after I was finished. He didn't text anything else, so I assumed he fell asleep soon after. The man I loved was only using me, and during that, He was cheating on me with my best friend. I haven't slept since reading the text. I felt as though I was going to explode, so I decided to vent here. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but instead, it's become a nightmare. I've been thinking about what to do besides the obvious. I've decided to go ahead with the wedding, but I've changed my vows. I've already spent too much money and time to not go through with it. But instead of marrying him, I'm going to show everyone what kind of people these two are. Sorry for the long summary, but I really just needed to let it out. So it's been some weeks since I wrote what I wrote. I honestly kind of forgot that I ranted on here. Thankfully, I remembered to give you all an update. I did indeed go onwards with the wedding. However, to everyone's surprise, my vows were not what was expected. Instead of the typical I'll love you forever, I decided to tell all of our loved ones the truth. I told them in great detail that my beloved fiance had been cheating on me with my maid of honor for a long time now. He planned on staying with me until he had enough financial stability to divorce me and marry M. They were both aware of my past struggles and relationships, yet continued to manipulate and deceive me. I read the actual text he had sent me the night before. I wrote it down for accuracy. I concluded my vows by congratulating the miserable two for their selfishness and cruelness. Everyone stared at me in silence, stunned. My ex fiance was beet red and mortified, while M started sobbing and pleading that it was a mistake. She tried to pull me into a hug, but I shoved her off. I told them both to never speak to me again. I addressed our guests once more. I invited them to the reception since it had all been paid for anyway before marching back down the aisle. I disappeared into the bathroom to have a moment alone before heading to the reception. Not everyone came, but many did support me, including most of the bridal party. I was offered many apologies and hugs. I asked that we all just try to have a good time, and that we did. I drank my sorrows away, ate lots of food, and danced with my family and friends. I was later told that my ex fiance and M had hurried out of the building while screaming at each other. I didn't care, frankly. The sooner out of my life, the better. After the failed wedding, it was very hard. I felt very alone and unlovable. The two people I trusted to never hurt me had done the unthinkable. It's still hard, even though it's been weeks later, both me and my ex fiance tried to text me. But I blocked them on everything, and I asked my friends not to contact them. They agreed and have been very supportive throughout all of this. My family has been very caring as well. I'm not sure if I'll ever quite recover from this. Honestly, it seems hopeless. I don't know how I will ever fully trust anyone again. I've sunk into a deep depression, so I'm considering getting some therapy to help me through this. I'm unsure if it'll help, but I guess it's worth a try. It's been months now since I last wrote, and I thought it would be good to give an update. I'm feeling a lot better. I did end up getting therapy, and it helped. I developed new hobbies to keep myself busy while trying new things. I needed to find who I was again. Most importantly, I needed time to heal. It's not perfect, I still hurt, but it's a start, I guess. My family and friends continue to be supportive. I've sworn off relationships for a long time, though frankly, I'm not sure if I ever want to roll the dice again. The thought of getting into another relationship gives me so much anxiety, so at least for now, I won't be starting one anytime soon. As for what happened to my ex fiance and M, I found out that they eloped. Last I heard, they were miserable and always struggling financially. Admittedly, it gave me some satisfaction to know that they didn't get the happy ever after they had planned. They didn't deserve anything less than hell. Anyways, that's all I have to contribute. I'm not sure what's in store for me, but at least I know now to be extra cautious. I'm grateful that I found out about their scheme before my ex fiance and I made it official. It may have been awful, but it would have been worse had I actually married him. Your ex and M are awful, just plain awful. Who the F does that to someone? That's honestly insane. Thank God your ex was stupid enough to text the wrong person. I hope you're able to fully recover. It's great to hear that those two got the karma they deserved. Glad to hear you're doing better. That's a nightmare situation. Though, that's a life lesson to double check who you're texting. LMAO. My wife has had two miscarriages and a stillbirth, and so when she got pregnant for the fourth time, I did my best to support her in any of her strange requests that she made. During the birth, she didn't want anyone who wasn't a medical professional in the room, including me. I wasn't too happy with this because I really wanted to see him be born, but it's her birth and her baby, so I went out without a complaint. Afterwards, she stayed the night and didn't want anyone other than me around. Both sets of new grandparents had been scheduled to come around, but I called them and said she wasn't ready yet, and so they didn't. 2 days after we came home with the baby, she still refused to allow anyone around. I understood that a new mother is going to be very protective over her child. However, these are our parents. She has a complicated relationship with her parents, so I don't mind her placing restrictions on them, but my parents are incredible and are so excited for a grandbaby. So I decided to tell my parents that they could come over and see the baby. I didn't consult my wife because I knew she'd immediately shoot down the suggestion and be in a mood for the rest of the day. They came over with gifts for my wife and the baby and were absolutely ecstatic. My wife seemed genuinely really happy. My mother gave her tips, and my wife looked relieved to be free of holding and feeding the baby for an hour. When they left, though, her attitude immediately shifted and she started yelling at me, which of course set off the baby for disrespecting her wishes. But he's my baby too. We both have a child now, and my family deserves to meet him. She yelled at me about her grief over our stillborn baby as if I didn't grieve him too. It's why I was excited for my parents to meet my healthy boy. Now she refuses to talk to me even though we're trying to care for a baby together. So, AITA? YTA. I understand you're excited to share your baby with your parents, but she just went from carrying a child for roughly 9 months to a medical procedure to dealing with the post pregnancy pain and hormone shifts. You did not. She's grieving on top of that, and you decided to go against her wishes and show off your baby anyways? Are you serious? Yes, you're the dad, and yes, it's your baby too, but you lack the general concern for your wife's well being and are completely dense to how she must be feeling. Jesus Christ, dude. YTA. 2 days? Two? I'm 8 days PP and I am dying. I cry all the time. I can barely move. I get like 3 hours of sleep per day broken up into like 30-minute chunks. Just wow. I will reassure you, I am speaking to a therapist and psychiatrist and have been my entire pregnancy. I have diagnosed major depressive disorder and PTSD, courtesy of the Army, and PPD has been on my radar the entire time. Thank you for your concern and kind words again. So I, 23 male, used to be a bartender when I first turned 18. I liked the job but ended up quitting because of pay. Recently, I was in the bar and my old manager begged me to come back, saying I was one of the best staff they ever had. I said there was no way unless they matched my current wage, 16.5 euros per hour, and she agreed. So I go back to work and there's a whole bunch of new faces. One of my new chefs is a guy called Joey, 31 male. Joey seemed chill, would check us all free fries on our lunch, etc. Enter Nicole. She's 19 and works with the entertainment side of things. Now let me preface this by saying I have absolutely no interest in her. I'm in a long-term relationship, and even if I weren't, honestly, she's a bit young for me. Well, Joey has a crush on Nicole. He always gives her free food and stuff, always tries to talk to her, etc. It's pretty obvious. A few weeks ago, we had a staff party at which Nicole would not leave me alone. At first she was friendly, but then she started trying to cuddle up to me. Kept bringing me drinks over, kept offering me cigarettes, etc. I was nice to her, but definitely didn't flirt back because, like I said, I'm simply not interested. Joey came over clearly seething, but trying to hide it. He made some comment like, I don't know why you're hanging out with the bar team. These little guys only make 10 euros while I make 14 euros. I corrected him saying I make 16 and a half. He called my bluff, so I showed him my last paycheck in my email. He said, fair, but was clearly mad. Since that night, Nicole has a bit of a crush on me. She always asks me when I'm working and comes in to see me. She'll eat her lunch with me if we're working the same days, stuff like that. Well, the other day she came in and ordered a few drinks and spoke to me for a little while. The bar was completely dead, barely 5 people in there. Joey comes storming over and gags at me, saying if I'm gonna stand around chatting, I can come in the back and help him clean pots. I tell him my job is the bar, his job is the kitchen, and the pots are his responsibility, not mine. He keeps complaining, so I just ignore him and start making Nicole another cocktail. She eventually leaves and my manager comes out with Joey standing behind her asking if I can go help him with the pots. Joey is giving me some smug look, but I tell her no. She says She says he could really use my help, and I say, if you make me clean pots, I'll quit. I don't need this job. My manager laughs and says, sorry, Joey, there's your answer. Joey rages and goes, sorry, but how is he allowed to be so effing unprofessional? I snap at him and say, unprofessional? You're the one starting workplace drama because you're bitter over a teenage girl. Everyone goes silent apart from the other bartender, Sam, who shouts, true! Joey storms off shift and doesn't come back. Since then, he is refusing to work days I work unless I apologize. Manager is trying to get me to, but I'm refusing, saying if he has a problem, it's his problem to get over. So, AITA? NTA, that this Joey can't deal with the fact that the world doesn't revolve around him should not be any of your problems. He'll need to deal with this own obsession over a girl clearly not interested in him, and it's not up to you to sugarcoat the world for him. If he'd paid more attention to his pots and less to what goes on in the bar, he wouldn't have had to ask for help to clean them.